Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm a programmer and an artist. And today we're going to be doing some old-fashioned modeling. We'll probably use some of my nodes and modifiers and stuff, but it's just going to be modeling stuff by hand. And what we're going to be modeling is an 18th century cannon, as you can probably tell from the references here. I'm going to make this a series of videos. Each video is going to cover a part of the modeling process. And I want to go through modeling the whole cannon and then making a high poly version of it. I want to bake textures from the high poly to the low poly, export it as an asset. I want to rig it. I want to do some animation for it. So yeah, we'll just kind of see where it goes. It's going to be several parts. I'm not sure how many. And to start with, I want to model the barrel of the cannon today. That's what we're going to do, which should be pretty easy. Probably be a very short video. First thing, before you go modeling anything, unless it's something really simple, is you're going to want good references. And so the references I have for this are from a book from the 18th century by a guy named John Muller. And it's a book about how you make cannons. So that's kind of interesting and fascinating to read as well, but it has these drawings in it, which are from the time, and so they should be pretty accurate. The one caveat to that is that the barrel here, while the drawing is very precise, the dimensions aren't to scale really. In the book, he outlines how long all of these different pieces are between like point A to B and so on. And it changes, it's like a template, and the dimensions of those all change depending on the caliber of the gun, and the ratio of the length of the barrel to the width also seems to change. So I did find where it said that for this 6-pound cannon that we're making here, the length of the barrel was 7 to 8 feet. So we'll go based off of that. Anyway, to begin with here, I'm going to put the 3D cursor right here, and we're just going to add a plane. We're going to model this using a screw modifier. So to start with, we'll draw an outline of the profile of the cannon, and then we'll spin it around our central point here. Now, the way I want to do this is we're going to make it in several parts, and the reason for doing that, and what I mean by that is this detail trim piece here will not be connected to the main part of the barrel. And the reason for doing it that way, you could do it connected, that's also fine. The reason I'm doing it that way though is so that the UV has some natural breaks and I don't have to mark as many seams, because I always like to do the UV unwrap at the same time as I'm modeling, because that way when I'm finished modeling all of the parts, I don't have to go back and do this huge step where I spend a whole hour unwrapping everything. Anyway, to model this, all I'm going to do is basically extrude and place points. You can also, for some things, if you want, hold Control and click, which doesn't extrude. It's up to you. Kind of depends too on if, I think the Control and clicking works nice if there are sort of curved parts. And if everything's straighter, then I prefer to extrude. So we'll put this here. Here would be a good place for the control method because it curves. And then we can scale this on X to 0, flatten it out. We will make this piece here. And then we will make one more here. Again, just splitting these into segments for the UVs primarily. So then here, another thing for the UVs, if you're modeling this accurately, the interior of the barrel would come all the way down. Since I know I'm not going to see inside of that far into the barrel, I'm just going to come in a little bit to right here, and we'll leave it like that. Then we have this piece here. We will model that like this. Got another one here. Again, just extruding. Bring that in. one more. Just following this drawing. And then here, what's interesting, there's actually, you can see on the drawing here, this sort of knob on the end of the cannon that I think they would tie ropes and stuff around is made of 2 circles. So we can model it that way. We'll just place a 3D cursor right on that point, add a circle. 16 points is good. We'll scale it down till it matches the radius. Click on this point here, add a circle, scale it down. Then we can merge these 2 points, delete these points here. We can delete this point, delete that point, select all of this and delete it, and then extrude this in here and delete that extra point. And then we actually don't even need that because it's inside. All right, that's basically it. Oh, I need to model. Then there's these little detail pieces, rings that go around. So we can model those. We can just extrude. Extrude, extrude, extrude. And then if we select all of this, we can flatten it by scaling it to 0 on the y-axis. Then we can just select all of that, make a copy of it for this one. And I think there's one more at the end, so make a copy of it for that one. And here, I'm not really worried about matching the drawing, bringing this down. I think having it straight makes more sense, so we will leave it like that. Then we can add a screw modifier. And we want to rotate around the x-axis. Gets us our model here. We're going to want to calculate the normals. So we fix that problem. And then there's little holes on the ends, which we can fill those in later. This is probably the best way to do that. One thing we could do is just add a new geometry nodes before this. And we could add a transform geometry. And we can just rotate it on X by 90. So now that moves our edge here so it's pointing down to the bottom, essentially, if we turn off the screw modifier. And then if we change this from 360 to 359.99, it'll actually put a split there, which again is just for UVs, which the only reason to do this is so that this stays a single edge that's really easy to edit if I want to change it later. So we can add then the UV automatic unwrap, and we can then add a weld, which will merge the two. So because it's 259.99, there's like a slight gap between these 2 edges, and then adding the weld modifier at the end merges those vertices together. So finally, we can select a material. And the reason we unwrapped it is just because if you look at the UVs the screw modifier makes, they're all messed up. You could just scale them as well, but that doesn't fix the ends here. So the auto UV unwrap just makes everything a little bit nicer. But it's still a single edge that you can edit very easily. So that's it for the main part of the barrel. We can add a couple other things here. Right here, there's the sort of hinge that it rotates on, so we can add a cylinder for that. I think 16 is a good number. We'll rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. The reason all of the numbers are already set to 16 is because I recorded this already, and the video was just black, so I'm re-recording it. But normally, if you add a cylinder, it'll have 32 points by default, or a circle, and you'll have to type 16 in. Anyway, we can just scale this down. Place it right here. Select this face, pull this in, delete. We might want to pull it in a little bit further, delete those faces. And then here we can put a seam around this, Control E mark seam. You can put a seam on the bottom. Select all of this and unwrap it. It can be scaled down. And then we can select a material, shade it smooth. And then you can see on this drawing here that that hinge, I think, goes at the bottom of the barrel. So we will pull this down like so. And then I'll just make sure that it's intersecting. For modifiers in this, we're going to want a mirror, and we want to mirror around our cannon barrel here on the y-axis. There are other details that we'll eventually want to add to this. Usually these cannon had sort of hooks like this that I think were used for lifting the barrel on and off of the carriage and stuff. I don't have, those aren't on this drawing, so we'll have to find another reference and add them later. And then there would also be some other details, usually some engravings and a touch hole for lighting, firing off the cannon at the end. But most of those we'll probably add when we do the high poly version of this. So anyway, that's it for the barrel. Like I said, very easy, very simple, just a screw modifier basically. And a couple tricks for getting UVs while keeping the screw modifier. Obviously, if you didn't want to do that, if you could just have your normal screw modifier like this, set to 360 degrees. And then you could convert this to a mesh or apply this modifier. Come into edit mode, select this edge. Well, you'd have to select it all the way down. So I guess the easiest way would be to go into this view, select all of these vertices like this, and mark that as a seam. And then you could unwrap it, and that would be the manual way of doing what we did with the modifiers here. But now, if you want to edit this, you don't have the single vertex to edit, or the single edge. You'd have to add loops and scale and so on. So anyway, it's up to you. Two ways of doing it. This one keeps it more simpler to edit later on, but uses more modifiers. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. In the next video, we will start do some modeling for the carriage here. This is my plan. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, that's all I've got for this one. Thanks for watching.